All right, looks like it's working. Every week I get better at doing this. It's a black art. I don't know what it is, but YouTube, for whatever reason, doesn't make it easy to do live streams. Their app on the iPhone is really great when it works, but for some reason, trying to get things working through the desktop is a little difficult. Anyway, hey everybody. This is Gear Talk. Thank you for tuning in. This is Gear Talk episode 23. Gear Talk is the show that I do every couple of weeks where I talk about the techie, geeky side of rollerblading. So I talk about wheels, I talk about bearings, I talk about grind plates, I talk about frames, I talk about boots, liners. If it helps you skate, then I want to talk about it. This week, got an action-packed show. I've got a lot of great questions that I've been able to answer this week, and let's dive right into it. So, big week for me personally. This week, I got the shipment of the 50/50 wheels in. So, last Friday they came in, and I've started shipping them out, and people have started receiving them, and the response is great. So, thank you all so much for supporting. This was a huge commitment. Buying a mold for wheels is expensive. But I've been saving my pennies, and I'm at a point now where I saved up enough that I was able to get a mold. And, ultimately I wanted to make a wheel that would fit the balance frames. And that was a really difficult thing to do. Back in the days when we designed the balance frames, people were skating, 56 millimeter wheels. That was kind of the standard. The John Julio Cosmo wheel was one of my favorite wheels. Whenever I'd skate anti-rocker, I would skate with those 56 millimeter Julio Cosmos. You would also skate flat 55, which again is a great size wheel. If you're interested in 55s, the Conjure mini flats just came out. They are a 55 millimeter 92A wheel, and I don't have a set yet. I'm going to get a few, probably in a couple of weeks to skate around, but 55 is a really great feeling, but what I wanted to do is come out with the best 58. And there's a few really good 58s out there. The one that I usually skate is the Dead, either the 88 or the 92. And it's a great wheel. I learned today that the Dead profile, the 58 millimeter profile, the rounded profile that everybody loves, is actually a custom mold. So they ponied up a huge amount of money to get those molds made, which is why the only people who have a rounded profile 58 like the Dead wheel is Dead. So if you like that profile, you don't have any other choices. If you want to go with undercover urethane, undercover is one of the wheel, I guess technically the factory is called AEND, but undercover is kind of the urethane that they work with. They're really great urethane. They're the company that Sick Urethane uses. They're the company that Conjure uses. Obviously, Undercover uses, Dead uses, Gods uses, Matter uses. Ton of different power slide companies and really great smaller companies use Undercover. If you want to get great urethane and you want a rounded 58, the Dead 58s, that's the best wheel that I've found. And that's what I was skating. But I wasn't a huge fan of skating them flat. They're great for anti-rocker, but I wanted to make a wheel that was designed for skating flat. And some of the characteristics that I wanted was that I could eliminate as much wheel bite as possible. So I learned a lot about wheel bite over the years. I skated flat 58s with a bunch of different wheels. I skated flat 55s with a bunch of different wheels. And I realized that the angle of the wheel has more to do with the avoiding of wheel bite than the hardness of the wheel. So you can skate, a 95A wheel, and it's not going to feel very good when you're skating, and it's also still going to bite. That angle, depending on how that wheel is angled, that angle is what keeps you from sticking on the ledge. So if you have an angled wheel, like a rounded wheel, like the Dead, you'd be able to slide a lot better. So the 50/50 wheel is a rounded wheel. It's almost a bullet wheel where the angles are at an angle so that it keeps you from biting, but it also has a flat top. And that was something that was really difficult to find. The first time that I ever saw it was a eulogy wheel, And Eulogy is great. They don't pour other people's wheels, though, so I didn't even ask to contact them. Probably the most famous, and the one that I modeled my wheel after, is the face wheel. And the face wheel is very similar to the Eulogy wheel, but imagine a more pointy and less flat top. So it's got much, much more angle, so that when you do jump on and when you are grinding, if you're on a ledge or something like that, you're going to have a lot less resistance. It's just like if you were getting big wheels and you were sliding on your big wheels. So I wanted to model my wheel after that. Nobody makes that wheel anymore. Face was a company owned by K2. They don't make that wheel anymore. They do have a 60 millimeter wheel that K2 made, which I think is poured by Bravo, which I looked into, but 60 millimeters is a little too big for a balance frame riding flat. I really needed a 58. So I invested and I got some 58 millimeter wheels. And here they are. So this is the new 50/50 58 millimeter wheel. It is a, like I mentioned, a kind of like a speed, kind of like a rounded, but still a flat profile. The flat is actually 8 millimeters at the top, and the edge where it starts coming up is 40 millimeters. So the math between the 40 millimeters and the 58, that's 18 millimeters. No, half that. 9 millimeters. 9 millimeters of angle. And I'm not, good at geometry or anything like that. But that angle and then the 8 mil of flat up there really makes it nice for avoiding wheel bite when you're doing slides or when you're doing grinds. You will definitely still feel the wheels. Now, it's not like you're going to eliminate all of the wheel bite, but the difference is when you grind a ledge with these wheels, you'll hear a squeak. You won't stop. And that is a huge difference. The wheel slides on the ledge instead of just stomping on the ledge. And that's what we were planning on doing with these new profiles. They're all black. They are 85A. And 85A, you ask, why is it so soft? Well, 85A is really great to skate. You know, we used to skate 85A back in the days. The face wheels that I modeled these after are 85A. Cosmo wheels, again, my favorite wheels, the 56s that I used to skate, the old John Julios, those are 85A. 85A is a really great hardness. It is soft, it's grippy, it's super responsive. The problem with 85A, and the reason why people don't use it, is if you don't have good urethane, 85A is going to wear down super fast. And these wheels do wear down faster than an 88A or a 90A. But for me, the trade-off was worth it. For me, getting a optimal ride for a flat setup, having the most cushion that I get when I skate, having the most grip and responsiveness, was worth it. If you take these to a wood skate park, you're going to be laughing. You know, I've skated some hard wheels at wood skate parks, and they are slippery. These things just grip. So it is a great feeling. Again, they're available now if you are interested. You can get them at Roller Warehouse, Oak City, Intuition, who else has them? Rush down in Mexico. Doshi's getting them. This is Soul is getting them. Hedon is getting them. They're going to take a little bit. You can get them from 5050frames.com as well. Thanks everybody again. I just wanted to start by thanking everybody. It was great. The response has been amazing, and I couldn't have done it without you. So thanks again for all of your support. So wheels, right? So those 58s, 58 is a really interesting size. And I've been skating 60 anti-rocker. That's kind of my go-to wheel size. And last I was skating these. These are some sick urethane Cameron Talbot wheels. These are 60 millimeter. They are 90A, I think. Maybe 92A, I think 90A. They're good. They're poured by Undercover. They're a rounded profile. When I'm skating anti-rocker, the profile doesn't matter as much. For me, I want a rounded profile when I skate anti-rocker. And the reason is I want to have grip when I'm turning, and I want to have as much wheel touching the ground as possible. An alternative is a flat wheel. Like conjures. So these conjures, same urethane. This is a 95A. This is a 92A, 90A, 92A. I don't know. These conjures are a very flat wheel, and you can see this one's actually worn in now. This Cameron Talbot. This is a 58. This conjure, and the Cameron Talbot thick urethane is actually a 60. Let me find one that isn't so worn yet. Here, this is a good one. All right, this one's a little better. The problem, I tell you what, the problem with skating anti-rocker, guys and girls, is that you wear through wheels pretty quick. You know, I don't skate that much, but I mean, this is really good urethane, and 90A, I mean, I'm wearing pretty quick. If you skate flat, you're going to last a lot longer. I'm just saying, you know, you invest twice as much, but you probably get twice as much life. Anywho, so yeah, look at these profiles. So you can see that this is a rounded profile. And a rounded profile is kind of like a semicircle. So you're going to get a nice arch on top. A flat profile is what it sounds like, flat. So 58 millimeter wheel is going to have maybe, so most wheels, let me take a step back. Most wheels are about 24 millimeters wide. I actually brought my calipers out. Oh no, did I forget them? No, I've got them. I'll get them in a minute. I brought my calipers out this time. A wheel is 24 millimeters wide. That's kind of the standard with inline skate wheels. The only exception was those Senate wheels back in the days, if anybody remembers those. Senate wheels were 30 millimeters. I don't really know why, maybe more stability. But 24 millimeters is what you would think of when you think of an inline skating wheel. This flat wheel is probably 20 millimeters, maybe 18 millimeters of flat. This Cameron Talbot rounded wheel, this is just a rounded wheel. There's no flat. And again, like I mentioned, the 50-50 wheels, these wheels, you can see the profile here. This is like 8 millimeters up top. So it is a mix between a rounded 60 and a flat 58. The reason why I bring this up is when you're skating anti-rocker, you're going to really use out these wheels. And for me, the profile matters the most when you're skating anti-rocker. Sorry, the rounded profile is best when I'm skating anti-rocker. When I'm carving, you know, when I just have two wheels, I want as much surface area as possible. If I'm skating with a flat profile wheel on anti-rocker and I'm carving, I just feel like, I don't know, I feel like I'm kind of wobbling. Like, you know, when you're sitting on a chair and the chair has like four legs, like North chairs, you know what a chair looks like, right? And when you lean back on a chair and you're just on the back two legs, that's kind of what I feel like when I'm skating a flat wheel anti-rocker. Like I'm kind of tilting, but I'm not really carving. I definitely have less surface area when I'm turning. So I always recommend, you know, if you're going to skate a anti-rocker wheel, skate a rounded wheel, skate something like the Deads, skate something like, you know, the Sean Smith Conjure wheels or the Cameron Talbot stick urethane wheels. I don't know what the current undercover line is, but, you know, anything undercover is really great. I know that there's some, Orange Wheel Company, and I don't know who else makes a rounded 60, but there's a few of them out there. That's what I recommend. If you're skating flat, if you want small wheels, if you don't really care about carving or anything, you can get a flat square wheel. For me, though, I think I always prefer a rounded wheel, maybe with a little bit of a flat like the 50-50 wheel. I don't know that I'm going to get anything with more flat than that. I just love the feeling of a rounded wheel. I want as much surface area touching as possible. So that is, you know, real quick about the wheels that I'm skating. Wanted to talk a little bit about bearing spacers, and I know this is a weird one, but so the 50-50 frame, 50-50 wheels come with. Let me go get my calipers real quick. It'll be easier that way. Crazy, I brought them out and then I forgot to get them. I even brought my ruler. So calipers, yeah, I switched out the battery. Should be nice and clean now. All right, so these are calipers. These things measure. So I'll get that that sick urethane wheel that I was talking about, and it should be, give or take, 24 mil, 24.38. That's pretty good. Now, most wheels are 24 mil, right? There's always going to be a little bit of variance. You know, plastics are plastics, urethane is urethane. There's always going to be a little bit of shrinkage, a little bit of wiggle room. Things heat differently. So you're going to get a wheel that's anywhere between, it's close to 24, but it's going to be a little bigger, maybe a little smaller. Bearings are always 7 millimeters. So I have a few bearings here that I wanted to measure. There we go. All right. So I have a few different bearings. Do I have any fitty bearings? I don't. I think I'm skating them all. Oh, there we go. So, 3 different bearings. So this is a 50-50 bearing. This is a twin cam ILQ Pro bearing. And this is a Wicked ABEC 9 bearing. And each of these bearings should measure exactly 7 mil. So this is 6.95. That's pretty close. 6.97. 6.97. So that is extremely tight tolerances. And the reason is that it's machined out of metal. I don't know what this is. It might be steel. Depends on the bearing. But usually they're really tight tolerances. So they're going to be as close to 7 millimeters as possible. And they need to be. You know, these are usually used in really high precision machinery where every little tolerance matters. Your bearings should always be 7 millimeters, no exceptions. So if you're assuming that the wheel is supposed to be 24 millimeters, and you've got 2 bearings in each wheel, so you've got 7 and 7, you got to add them up, and you got to make 14. So there's 10 millimeters within that bearing that needs to be filled. Now, remember I was talking about how plastic can be a little squishy sometimes? Not all wheels are going to be exactly 24 millimeters. You know, we measured a wheel and it was a little bigger than 24. But you want to make sure that when you're tightening down your frames, that the distance between the axles, between the bearing, the frame spacers, is always 24 millimeters. The best way to do that, and the way that I can't believe people didn't know this, but I've got a lot of people who are asking what they're for. The best way to do it is you put a bearing spacer in between your wheel, between the 2 bearings. So a bearing spacer, sometimes they call them wheel spacers. I call them bearing spacers. They're spacing between the bearings. This should be 10 millimeters. So this is a bearing spacer. This is the one that comes with the fitty frames. It's going to be a hard time for me to say fitty wheels. This is the one that comes with the 50-50 wheels. These are 10.17 millimeters. There's a few others. Some of these wheel spacers, bearing spacers, have this little like UFO looking thing around it. Doesn't matter, they should be right around 10.1, 10.2 millimeters. That's probably where you want to be. Again, you want to make it tight. What you don't want is you don't want it to be loose. So if you're adding things up and your frame is assuming that you've got 24 millimeters in there, and between your 2 bearings at 7 millimeters, you got 14, you need to have at least 10 millimeters in the middle. If you have less than 10 millimeters in the middle, your bearings are going to squish in and they might torque that wheel a little bit. So if you have if you don't write a bearing spacer, you're in for trouble. You're assuming, so if you don't have a bearing spacer, you're assuming that the distance between these wheels is consistent. And sometimes it is. Sometimes you can get away with it. But sometimes it's not. And if it's not, when you tighten down that wheel with the axle between the 2 frame spacers, and you're assuming that it's going to be 24 millimeters, it's going to pinch. And it's just going to keep tightening because it can. There's nothing to keep it from tightening anymore. If the inside of this wheel isn't 10 millimeters, it's just going to keep tightening and tightening and tightening until it just pinches into the wheel, and that's when you start seeing your wheels. Have you ever had like a wheel that kind of rubbed on the inside of your frame? It's the worst feeling. That is what happens when you don't ride with bearing spacers. That is what happens when alignment is off with the wheels. The wheels should be nice and snug around the bearings, and your bearing spacers should be 10 millimeters plus a little bit, 0.1, 0.2. Powerslide actually makes adjustable bearing spacers. I don't have any of them here, but you can imagine what they're for, right? So if you measure your bearings, and the bearings are going to be 7 millimeters, no matter what. Like, bearings are always 7 millimeters. It's very rare to find a bearing that isn't 7 millimeters. But the distance between the frame walls, that might change a little bit, especially if you're not skating aluminum frames. So if you're skating an aluminum frame, like a Wizard frame, like a Sola frame, like a Kaiser Element 2, you're not going to have that problem as much. But if you're skating a plastic frame, if you're skating a carbon frame, you might have a little bit of a tolerance. You need to make sure that you have a bearing spacer. Now, the 50/50 wheels, they come with bearing spacers, so you get them for free. A lot of wheels don't come with bearing spacers. It's fine, you should be able to get them at your local skate shop. Just make sure that you have them. When I look for bearing spacers, I try to get the most compatible ones. The ones that we provide with the 50/50 wheels, and the ones that Eulogy provides, and the ones that Go Project provides are these just basic cylinder ones. Again, it's just 10 millimeters. It's 8 millimeters through the shaft so that your axle fits freely, and it's really thin. And the reason for that is it needs to fit within this wheel. So this is the Conjure flat. The inside of this hub is a little tighter than what you would get with other wheels. So if you look at like the 50/50 wheel, this Conjure wheel and this 50/50 wheel, the inside of the hub is different. So the undercover hub, this is the hub that Undercover uses for their aggressive line. The undercover hub has these little arches on the inside. The 50/50 wheels don't. And I don't know why they have the arches. I don't know if it adds any strength. I don't know if there's been any tests about it. I do know that it gets frustrating when you're trying to fit one of these frame space or these wheel spacers with the little UFOs, and it doesn't, like this one doesn't fit. That frustrates me. I do know that Dead just announced and released their new line for 2019. They have new wheels for this year, new colorways, black and white wheels, but with some really cool colors for the white wheels and really neat graphics for the black wheels. They sell bearing spacers that fit perfectly within this undercover hub. And they say Dead on them, and they're anodized black. They look pretty slick. I don't know why anybody needs, crazy custom bearing spacers, but if you need them, Dead has you covered. And they fit this undercover wheel. And this undercover wheel, I think, is the only one that has this tight hub like this. I pulled a few wheels from my stash that have different hubs. So another example, this is the Shred Pool wheel from Conjure. Sorry, it also has that undercover hub. This is the one that Shred Pool signed for me. By the way, I know that you're insanely jealous, and I got it washed afterwards, just because Shred Pool. This is an old Pleasure Tools wheel. This was Hyper back in the days, and it has a fairly big hub. This is a Eulogy. Is this a Metatron or is this an Abdiel? This has one that has little teeth inside, which is interesting. It fits. No, it doesn't fit it. Interesting. So this doesn't fit the UFO thing either. I wonder which one is which. This Eulogy is probably a little looser than the undercover one, but it still has these little teeth. I'd be curious to hear what that's for. I don't know that it really helps with anything. This is an Apex wheel. This is from La Beta. La Beta wheels, they have plenty of space in there. And then these are the Power Slide 72 mil wheels that came on my Aeons. I don't know who makes these. It might be Undercover as well. I would doubt it, though. They probably wouldn't spend that on an OEM wheel. But it has plenty of space. So the only ones that you really need to worry about are Eulogy and anything poured by Undercover. In those cases, just get the smaller bearing spacers. The reason why they probably have this is because if you put in one of these cylinder bearing spacers, if you've got a lot of space in there, like, if you put it in like a 50-50 wheel, you got a lot of space in there. And when you put this wheel spacer in, it's kind of hard to line up sometimes. You squish those bearings in, you got that bearing spacer in, then you need to put your axle in, and it moves around a little bit. It's going to move around a lot less with the Undercover and the Eulogy hubs for sure. I don't know. I don't know that that's really... If that's the reason why they did that, I don't know that that's the good reason. Or at least I should say, if that's the reason they did that, fine. I don't know why anybody would make these UFO spacers then. I mean, maybe the UFO spacer is also to line up in wheels that don't have the internal hub. I don't know. All I do know is we stick with the cylinder ones. It's important to get bearing spacers. If you aren't riding with bearing spacers, make sure you get yourself some bearing spacers. They're cheap, a couple bucks, and you can get them. You can get them with a set of wheels. Get yourself a new pair of Eulogy wheels or some new Go Project wheels. They'll come with bearing spacers, so you don't have to worry about it. And you'll feel the difference if you're skating without them and then you jump to skating with them. It's night and day. It's just a smooth ride. You won't get that pinch that you're used to. It's really great. So hope that helps. I know that a few people out there asked about it. That is what I would say. If you get any clicking, if you get any wiggle within your wheels and you've already tightened your frames down, you hear wiggle, again, it's tolerance issues. You got to make sure that everything lines up properly. If these bearing spacers are less than 10 millimeters, you're going to have some click because it's going to tighten. It's going to think that it's at 24. It's going to move around a little bit. That's not good. So make sure that you ride bearing spacers 10 millimeters or more, and you should have a really good experience. All right, that was the main topic that I wanted to get to, bearing spacers. It's weird that, let me take a drink real quick. It's funny how many things that I take for granted that I just knew as fact that I never thought about. I never thought about why you needed bearing spacers. I think back in the days, bearing spacers to me were, you couldn't skate without them. And the reason was that they were these 6 millimeter bearing spacers. Do I have any of those? I don't know that I have one. Oh, I do. Look at this. Cool. So this is a 6 millimeter bearing spacer. This thing is what we grew up on. So the early Rollerblade TRS, these things rode 6 millimeter axles. So the axle, the diameter of the axle is 6 millimeter. And I don't know why they decided 6 millimeter was the right size, but almost all skates back in those days came with 6 millimeter axles. So as a result, you would get these, they were usually plastic. They're probably plastic in those skates. But you would get these bearing spacers that were, these wheel spacers that were 6 millimeters. So the inside here is like a 6 millimeter channel. And this section on the outside is probably the same height as, the standard one. The measurements of these, so you take a bearing, slide right on, each of these edges is 7 millimeters. So you've got your bearing fitting into this, and it can't go any closer. But what's cool is that the bearing slides right into this bearing spacer. It was a really cool design. I don't know why we moved to 8 millimeters. I remember when 50-50 moved to 8 millimeter axles. It was right after Salomon, I think. Salomon came out and they had their 8 millimeter axles, and they came with 8 millimeter standard. And I think that we all just kind of assumed that, 8 millimeters is better. Like 8 millimeters is thicker. the amount of axles that we were breaking, this was back in the hammer days. So people were jumping off of buildings and stupid shit like that. They would break axles. And, 8mm axles are really hard to break. So I think we all just shifted over to 8mm. And, we haven't looked back. The only exception now is K2. K2 still has those 6mm axles, and they have those rockerable bearings and rockerable frame spacers and all that. There is a thing called a shim that Joey from Mushroom Blading showed me. Shout out, Joey. He said that they use them up, when they do their skating. And a shim, it's a 24mm, 6mm slug that kind of goes through from wall to wall. But it accommodates a 8mm. How does it work? Yeah, so it's 24mm from left to right. It fits between your bearings, so it would fit like this, right? So it would start from here and it go to this side, and it would go through the bearing, kind of like this thing, through the bearing. Maybe it goes through the bearing. I don't have any. I wonder how it works. It goes through something, and it fits all the way through so that your axle can fit through. Maybe because you can ride 6mm axles with and then have I'm going to have to get a set and just check them out. Anyway, that was the way that they went around it. I don't know why they did that or why it worked. It's an interesting hack in order to use K2 frame spacers, but those frame spacers are pretty cool. The fact that you can rocker them in 6 different directions, that's great, super customizable. So maybe that's why they did it. You can use this 6mm axle, but you can still have this shim that goes all the way through, so you don't have to use the bearing spacer in the middle. That's probably what it is. So you probably use this bearing spacer inside the 2 bearings, and then you use the shim that goes through, and then you use the axle that goes through that's probably it. So the axle goes through the shim, and it simulates a 8mm axle on the inside, but you're actually using 6mm. That's probably what it is. Anyway, I never knew that there was this much to think about with axles. But, I did a lot of research with the Fitty Fitty thing. And, back in the days, we just kind of shipped what worked, and we never thought why it works. And now I think about it. So I hope that helped with everything. I can't believe that we used to skate 6mm, and I can't believe that K2 still does. All right, let me look at some comments and questions and see if there's anything that I can answer out there. All right. DV Inline. This is a great question because I was going to talk about it. DV Inline asks, do you think I could get smaller wheels on an Aeon 60mm wheel boot? Absolutely. I'm skating 58s right now. You'll never guess which wheels I'm skating. Yeah, so you can always ride smaller wheels. There's obviously a limit. So if you're skating it's hot here, and there's a little bug that flew by me. If you're skating, say a 60mm frame, like a Create Original or like an Element. A good example would be like a Wish frame, right? So if you're skating a Wish frame, you could fit, it's designed for a 72-61 wheel split. So 72's on the outside, 61's on the inside. You could skate any wheels you wanted. I skated 68-58 and it was fine. But there comes a point where you can start rubbing on the frame if you ride wheels that are too small. So if you skated 58s on the outside and 48s, I guess it would be. I don't even know. That would be a pretty rough ride because you would probably rub on the ground. Same with like a Cultic frame. A Cultic has that wheel bite protection. I think it's designed for like a flat 60. If you were to ride a flat 55 on a Cultic frame, you would probably rub. when you're skating. It's not designed for that. The Aeon, on the other hand, works great with 58 millimeter wheels. And I actually have mine up here. So these are my Aeon 60s. They are a size 910 shell. These are a replacement shell. I don't know that they ever made this white. Maybe they did. But this is just a replacement shell. I actually got the cuff and the strap and the liner out of my 72 mil Aeons. And I swapped them in because I still have the 72s, but I wanted to try these. They are riding 58 millimeter wheels. So I have the 50/50 wheels on right now. The 50/50, 58 millimeter 85A wheels. They're great. 58 mil in this frame is amazing. I used to skate 58 mil Volo wheels. Do I have those up here? I do. How organized I am tonight. So these are the wheels that I used to skate. These are the old Volo generic wheels, 58, 88. They were great. I really like these wheels. They're more of a squared wheel. If I had to improve them, the profile wasn't great for, all the skating that I was doing, but it was fine. What I liked about them is they were cheap. They were like $20 for a set of 4 or something like that. So, and they held up great. They were just wheels. They felt like OEM wheels. There was nothing special about them, but they skated great. The reason is I didn't want to skate flat 60. Back in those days, there were a few 60s available, but I wanted to get in on the cheap, and I got these Volo wheels. I think I got them when I got back into skating, and I got flat, what did I write? I wrote flat with Volo frames, and I got the Volo wheels. And then I used those on some old balance frames, 50/50 balance frames. And then I kept the wheels, and I just put the wheels on some Aeons when I got them. I don't see any issue with riding flat 58 on Aeon 60s. I think that it's a great combo. They're designed to sit 61, I think. They used to come with a 60. 61's fine. But yeah, I think they're great. I'm a huge fan of the 58s. I think 58 is a really good size. It's got a really good mix of acceleration. It doesn't have a lot of coast, especially if you were comparing like a 65 or something like that. If you wanted a wish frame, you get a lot of coast on a wish frame. These don't have that sort of coast. They're more like the quick acceleration. But that's kind of what I like when I'm skating aggressive. I set these up last week because I wanted to test what a flat setup was like with these wheels. I've skated the balance frames with them before, and I really liked them. But I wanted to skate what other people skated. So I put on the Aeons. Absolutely love the Aeons. I forgot how much I loved the Aeons. The one thing that I forgot, well, there's two things that I forgot. The first thing that I forgot is with these Aeons, these straps fall out a lot. So the Velcro, the way the strap works is it's a 45-degree strap, but it Velcros on this side. So it doesn't have like a rivet to keep it on. It's just Velcro that keeps it strapped onto one side. And then you cross over your foot into the other side, loop it through, back over, and then it tightens. The problem is that this Velcro doesn't get loose, but the Velcro underneath that holds it to the other side, that gets loose. And you can kind of hear it happening. So when you're skating and you hear a little clink, 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 you know that it's getting loose because this little buckle is starting to move. It's not good. I'm probably just going to sew. My wife has a sewing machine, so I'm probably just going to sew this tight. I'm not going to replace these straps anymore, I don't think. And if I do, I'll just get new straps. The other thing about these Aeons that I forgot is that the sole is kind of slow. It's not super slow, but it's slower than I remember. I'm going to skate them again for a bit. I kind of got to a point, I love skating new skates, but I kind of got to a point with my skating that I was getting really confident and I was learning new tricks, and then I stopped. And I kind of plateaued. And when I plateaued is when I started trying different skates. So I tried the the USD 7, I tried the USD Shadow, I tried the Rollerblade Solo. And right around that time was when I was learning my topside tricks. And I kind of lost them for a while. Granted, those skates are a little different. So for me to do topside tricks in those skates requires a lot more practice, I think. But I feel really confident with the Aeons. I'm going to stick with the Aeons for a while and skate those. I think that it's best for me to just get back into a good, like, comfortable groove with skates. But of course, I'm going to get the itch and I'm going to want to skate something else. So, famous last words, right? Anyway, thanks for the question. Yes, I highly recommend skating 58mm wheels on USD Aeons. 60s are great, 58s are fine. I skate 58s. I've only skated 58s. I absolutely love 58s on the 60mm Aeon. Get in there. All right. I guess I was just saying how I was going to stick on these Aeons for a while, and then somebody sends me new skates. So let me take a drink. So I think I mentioned a couple episodes ago that people have been sending me things. And I'm never going to say no. I mean, I'm not going to ask for things like you guys. I love every one of you. And thank you so much for watching. And thank you so much for supporting. All the Patreon supporters are amazing. Anybody who's ever watched one of the shows, clicked on one of the ads, watched the video ads, like that sort of stuff really helps. Spreading the word really helps. So thank you all so much. I really mean it. It's crazy to think that this little YouTube channel that I started 2.5 years ago is like over 5,000 subscribers now. So it's incredible. But some people have started sending me skates. They see the wall behind me and they're like, "Hey, do you have a pair of K2 style points?" And I'm like, "No, I don't." And they're like, "Huh, check your mail." And there's a box with K2 style points. So people have been looking through their closets and they find things that they're sitting on that they don't want to just sit on. And they would rather have it on the wall. And I actually got 2 new pair of skates this week that I wanted to share. And I'll go through it right now. So the first ones that came in, these ones, I actually don't remember. I don't think I was around when they came out. These are the Rollerblade Point 8s. So they are, the same model line as the, the Access and the New Jacks. The new ones are the New Jacks. The Alphas. These are the Point 8s. Really cool. The Downtowns, or what are they called? Oh, what are these ones called? Oh, I forgot. Yeah, they are Downtown. I was right. So these are the soft boot, kind of skinned hard boot from Rollerblade. They came out in like 2000, 2001. The Access did. This is just a progression of it. You can kind of tell from the groove that this is a fairly recent version. This comes with the Rollerblade frame. So the other one that I have, the New Jacks, come with the blank frames. These came with the Rollerblade frame. And these frames are crazy. So they can fit, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they could fit a 72mm wheel on the outside. So you can ride anti-rocker with a 72mm wheel. That is huge. I love that. I mean, I don't know that they're for me, but I love that they would do that. So let me find the name of the guy who sent these in real quick. Oops. So these were sent in by Will. Will, thank you so much for sending these in. Definitely going to be cool on the wall. It's interesting to see the progression in Rollerblade. I need to get some access now to see the first ones, but yeah, they're just normal skates. They're heavy. Oh, they're so heavy. I mean, these are pretty big. What are these, a size 11 and a half? So they're pretty big, but I forgot how heavy these were. You know, with the leather and with the cuff and all that, I mean, it's just a heavy skate. Super cool, though. Need more blue and gray in rollerblading. We don't have enough blue and gray. Very cool. Anyway, thank you, Will. This is awesome. I'm going to put them back on the wall. I got a couple other things that somebody sent in, which is cool, before I do the last skates. So these came in from a guy named James, who was going to his local shop, and he saw something on the wall, and he's like, I know who needs that. Check this out. Oh. Look at this thing. So these are the original 50/50 UFS frames. So these are the John Julio UFS frames. And I think I talked about these before. I think I might have a set somewhere. These were the first UFS frame that we made with 50/50. So it came with 6mm axles. We were just talking about 6mm axles. These were 6mm axles. We ended up modifying this frame to make the balance frame. Where is it? Balance frame. Here's balance frame. So it's really hard to tell, but this frame is no more. We can't use this frame anymore. But if you look on the inside, you can look at the arch system on the inside. You can compare that the arches are exactly the same. They also had the dual injection H-block, which we might bring back. I don't know. I have to make it so that it's cool. But yeah, so 6mm axles. I forgot that we had 6mm axles. So these were the original frames. They came in 3 sizes. This is the size medium. Technically, they came in 2 sizes. The medium and the small shared a mold. The difference was that we had a little insert in the mold so that when we wanted to make a medium frame, the insert could be put in. Oh, no, I'm sorry, backwards. When we wanted to make a small frame, the insert would be put in the mold, and it would look smaller. So it was a cosmetic change for the small. But the wheelbase was the same. It should be 250 from 1 to 4. I have my ruler here. 250 from 1 to 4. This was before juice blocks. They would probably fit juice blocks, funny enough. No, wait, did we move the split? I think we moved the split. I think the split is a little bigger. This one was equidistant. So each of the wheels was the same distance apart. 6mm axles, 6mm spacers, really cool. This was John Julio's, and this was, so this patch, you can see this patch. I actually designed this patch with John. He's playing a video game, and this was when he was working on Rolling, which was the, do I have it here? Yeah, I do. Rolling. So this was the Xbox and PlayStation game that John was in, as well as, who else? Fabiola, Sessa, not Frankie. This was the different one. There were a bunch of skaters in this. He's actually skating balance frames on the cover. There you go. So yeah, this was you know, when he was working on this game, he was obsessed with video games, and he wanted his patch to be him playing a video game. So I drew this this TV and this little console. I think we used the picture of him. I didn't draw that. I think somebody else did. Came out great. The patches don't stay on very long, but it's really cool. James, thank you so much for sending these. These are amazing. I'm going to put them on my wall inside. Max wheel height, 58mm. There you go. So there you go. James also sent these crazy liners. Look at these. In perfect condition, these are the Sinister liners. So I never had these. I remember when they were released. It was at the ASR show in probably 90. No, it would have been 2000 because we had the UFS frames. So it was probably 2001, maybe 2002 when these came out. Does it have a date? It doesn't have a date. Talk about a weird time. So Senate, they were making everything under the sun back then. You know, this is right when Supercomputer Robot came out. This is right when Grand knee pads and elbow pads came out, and they started making liners. This was before the skate. They didn't have a skate at the time, but they made this liner. So this liner is pretty tech, if you ask me. I don't know how they made this. I don't know if they hired somebody to make it, but it's pretty cool. It has this, I don't know if this is carbon fiber. It kind of looks like a carbon material woven in for some reason. I don't really know why. The back is like no slip, so if you slide it in, it won't get that heel rise that you get sometimes with liners. The bottom is almost walkable. You know, it's not super walkable, but it says Senate on the bottom because you know you're a badass if you have Senate. It had like a Nike Air style heel, so you could, you know, squish and it would feel like a little bit of a cushion, a little bit of shock absorption. These have probably got to feel pretty bad if you actually wanted to skate them compared to normal liners. Oh wow, even the insole had shock absorption. Look at this. They had their own insoles. This insole even says Senate on it. How crazy. Man, they had so much money back then. Anyway, I'm not going to be skating these. These are a size 10. They would probably fit me. They're a size 28. I just think they're amazing. For Senate to have the confidence to come out with a aftermarket liner back in those days is ridiculous. I mean, nobody had aftermarket liners. We didn't even sell anything boot only. Like, you couldn't get a boot only skate. Everything was a complete. Ugh, good old Senate. They were even laceable. So good. Anyway, Senate Sinister liners, very cool find. James, thanks again. These are incredible. They will be cherished. All right, let me check the comments real quick before I do the big. Well, I've got two big reveals actually. I got two big reveals. I got one aggressive, and I got one big wheel. So I'll do both of them. Check the comments real quick and see if there's anything there. All right, I'm not seeing any questions recently. Oh, Mondicel Alonso. Hi. He says hi. Oh, thank you, DV Inline, for the super chat. Appreciate it. David Pearson. Compass 110, something you're working on. You know, I'm always working on something, right? So every time we bring in wheels, I always bring in some samples for testing. You know, full disclosure, our wheels are made in South Korea. It is an amazing factory that does gravity poured urethane at a amazing quality. Like, I mean, if you skated Compass wheels, you know that the wheels are legit. Like, they're an amazing wheel. I'm not going to talk about the other people who get their wheels made there, but you'll know the names. They are great. It is expensive to get wheels made there. The wheels end up cheaper per wheel than if I were getting them made locally. They are more expensive because I have to ship them. So every time I do shipping, I try to bring in samples of new wheels that I can test. You know, I'll try different hardnesses, I'll try different sizes, I'll try different profiles. Last time I brought in the initial Compass order, the 72s and the 100s. I brought in the 50-50 wheel samples and the 80mm wheel samples. This time I brought in the 50-50 wheels and the 80mm wheels, and $110 millimeter wheel samples. So these are going to be the Compass 110s. I haven't skated them yet. They are the same urethane, the same profile as the Compass 100s. They have the same amazing core, the Compass core. This thing is fierce. It is super strong. You're not going to break this. They are an 85A 110 millimeter wheel, and I've got 2 sets of 6. So I'm going to set up 1 set of 6 on these Flying Eagles so that I can continue doing that review. And the other set I'm going to send up to my friend Guy Crawford, who skates on the Compass team, and he's going to do some testing up there in Toronto. So between the two of us, we're going to put on some miles. We're not in any rush to bring out these 110s, but I know that a lot of people have asked for 110s. If I can recreate the quality that I made with the 100s with a 110, I'm going to be really happy. I love skating those 100s. Where are the wizards? Oh, here they are. So these are the wizard frames that I set up for Dylan. He skated miles on these. I mean, you can see how dirty they are. They're just a mess. But they've only worn... I mean, the tolerances on these things are crazy. They've only worn like 2 mil. And I don't know how many miles he's put on them, but these things are great. He hasn't rotated them either. He should probably rotate them. But they're nice and broken in now, at least. This urethane's great. And if I can recreate this urethane, if I can recreate this wheel, but with a 110, slightly bigger core, perfect urethane, I mean, it's going to be a really great 110. So we'll be testing these in the next month or so. I'm going to set them up this weekend. Last weekend was just a blur with the wheels coming in and with the backpack pre-order. So I'm super excited for these. I know there's a lot of people out there who love 110s. I really think that this is going to be a core that you're going to like. I think the wheel is going to be amazing. If it's anything like the 100s, I think people are going to love them. So stay tuned. Nothing to announce tonight, but we are going to start testing them. I did mention the Compass 80s. So here is the Compass 80. These came in as well. This is the Raleigh. It's a little dirty because I dropped it. This is the Raleigh wheel. Raleigh is the capital of North Carolina. It is the most urban city that we have. It is great for skating. 80 millimeter wheels. You know, it's flat, slight hills, but not a ton. A lot of businesses and churches and parks and schools and things to skate through. 80 millimeter is an amazing size to skate. I skated these on the Rollerblade Solos and a 84 millimeter UFS frame, and it was so much fun. 80 is a really good size. You know, I have kind of shunned it. You know, I stuck with the hundreds, 3x100s for the longest time because I really like that feeling that you get with a 100 millimeter wheel. You get that coast feeling. It's such a great feeling. But 80s really have that mix where I feel like any energy that I put into the wheel when I'm skating as hard as I skate, that's as hard as I'll go. And I set these up on some new frames. Where are they? Here they are. So these are brand new ground control 80 millimeter large frames. So these are the version 2, I think. I don't know how to tell the difference. I think they're the version 2. I got these from Roller Warehouse. You know, thank you, Gil, for hooking it up. I did pay for them, but he gave me a bit of a deal. So really appreciate it. You know, highly recommend Roller Warehouse if you're looking for things. They were the only place that had these in large. And, you know, it never hurts to give them a call and see if they'll do a deal. So, yeah, highly recommend Roller Warehouse if you're interested. They have everything. So they definitely had these in stock. I'm going to skate them and see what they're like. These are, so the problems that I had with the 80 millimeter rollerblade frames were that, first of all, they were designed for an 84. And 84 is fine, but I wanted to skate 80s. And if you're skating an 80 on a frame designed for an 84, you're going to feel high. Not high in that sense, but a lot higher than you should. You can see these. These are pretty close to the carbon. There's like 3 mil that it extends past. I bet they could get it even smaller. I bet you could fit 84s on this. I bet you could. I gotta try it. But these are on the Sebas. So I let Dylan borrow the Sebas when he was skating the Wizards. He's done skating the Wizards, so I grabbed them back from him. I swapped out the Wizard frames, put these on tonight, set them up with 80 millimeter compass Raleigh wheels. They are 270 millimeter 1-4. Now, if you've been watching my show lately, you know that I've been struggling to try and find a 80 millimeter UFS frame that I liked. All of the 80 millimeter frames that you can find are short. So I have these. This is an example of what most 80 millimeter frames look like. These are the Kaiser Arrows. They are 243 from 1-4. And if you look, when you put that on my boot, it's just long enough. It's barely long enough. I want something that's long. I want something that's like longer than this. I think the rollerblades were 250 millimeters, 255. These 270s are going to make a huge difference. Double measure, 270, perfect. The question is it going to be too long? You know, there's no rocker here. These are a completely flat frame. So the problem being that if the distance between 1 and 4 is too long, it might have that feeling that you're kind of on skis. But because you're skating flat, you'll probably still have a pretty good turning radius. I'm going to skate these this weekend, I hope. Maybe just around the neighborhood. We have a bit of a busy weekend. But I put them on the Seba. These are the Seba CJs. Straight carbon. The aluminum is straight on the carbon. I took off the sole plate, used the small UFS bolts. It is as solid as I'm going to get. And I haven't skated these Seba skates in a while, but I'm really looking forward to this setup. I think 4x80 is the way to go. And I really hope that this frame works. I think it looks incredible. I think it's going to be fun. So stay tuned. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. I'm going to be testing them and definitely posting a video up. All right, check the comments and then the last big reveal for the night. The Van Bosch. Lawrence, do you know if Bravo still owns the license to Senate? Do you have any interest in reviving any other brands outside of 50/50, Senate, Fiction, England, Medium, etc.? That's kind of a good question. I would love to talk. Yes, they still own Senate. There is an episode of the True Spin podcast with Steve John. Steve, we miss you. Steve, we would love more True Spin. Just saying. It's been a while. And I still have your liners if you want them back. Anyway, there is a great episode with the True Spin podcast. I think it had Rob G, Kevin Gillen, and who else was on there? Lonnie, maybe? And they were talking about feet, I think, feet 4. And Kevin was talking about Senate. Kevin, I think, still works there. But he, kind of managed Senate. And when he was doing that, he skated for Senate, and then he kind of managed Senate, and then he kind of was like the product guy behind Senate. He took that route and made Senate his baby. So he was the man responsible for Senate. He just own Senate. You know, he didn't own it, but he was in charge of it. He did everything. And he became part of Bravo, and he started working for the other brands there. So he did a lot of work with Kryptonics. He did a lot of work for Sector 9. I think that's another one of the Bravo brands. There's a few other brands that Bravo makes. I know that he did some work with Kryptonics, especially the longboarding stuff. He's been posting some pictures on his Facebook. If I think it's public, but just find Kevin on the Facebook. You'll be able to find him. If not, I think he's on the Instagram. And in the interview on the True Spin podcast, he did say that they still own the rights to Senate, that they could bring it back anytime. But Bravo wants to make money. And there's not a lot of money in inline right now. I mean, believe me, like bringing in as many things as I have, as many products as I have, has taken a lot of work and, basically break even. Like if I were trying to do this as a full-time gig, it would be really difficult to support my family. I don't know how John does it. I think he's the only one who can do it. He is incredible. So, he's able to do it with them. He probably has the business nailed. He's got the distribution. He's got great products. He's doing everything right. That's what I aspire to do. I don't know that I'll ever do it full time, but I know that the money just isn't there yet. It's slowly growing, but it just isn't there yet. And I fear that if Bravo, and I think this is what Kevin was alluding to, if Bravo wanted to come back, they would want to come back hard. They still own Hyper, they still own Kryptonics, they still make those wheels. I have some old, I don't know where they are, but I have some old Kryptonics wheels that when I was doing research for my 50/50 wheels and Compass, I talked with Bravo, and they looked fine. Like they pour the K2 wheels, they pour the Rossi's wheels, they pour the ground control wheels. They still make wheels, so it would be easy enough to just put a Senate logo on those wheels. And I'm sure they still have the logos for the t-shirts, and it would be easy enough to bring out some t-shirts and some backpacks. They still got the patterns, I'm sure. But for me personally, like, I don't know what that would do. Like, what would that bring to the industry that we don't already have? Like, I think the nostalgia is pretty huge, and I think that having Senate back would be kind of cool. But for me, Senate wasn't a brand, it was the team. Just like Mind Game. Mind Game wasn't the brand, it was the team. It was Dustin. It was, in the days, Farmer, and it was Shima. And that, to me, was like, that was what Mind Game was all about. And I loved watching those guys skate, and they were the brand. Without Kevin skating, without Santiago, without, who else was a big Senate head? Frankie back in those days, even Richard skated for Senate. Like, they had a lot of killer skaters, but they kind of grew up through the years as, like, Senate. They had Randy and Louie and Petty, back in those days, and it slowly grew. Same with Medium. I don't know if just bringing back the brand would do anything, and I wouldn't be interested in it. The reason why I wanted to bring back 50/50 is because I love balance frames. And you can't just buy balance frames. You can't, you can't just walk into a store and buy these balance frames. I tried. When I got back, the only frames that I had were the original balance frame samples. And that's what I was skating, because those are the only frames that I had. And these are the frames that I love. And I couldn't find them. And that's why I brought back 50/50. Not because I wanted to make a quick dollar. Trust me, I'm not making a quick dollar. I'm working my butt off. And I'm not making a lot of money doing it. But I wanted to skate these frames again. And the only way to do that is by making these frames again. If I were Senate, what is missing? What is unique to Senate? The backpacks maybe. But that's really about it. The wheels were wheels, I'm sure everybody's going to love the Liberty Cores, and nobody makes them like Senate, but that's probably a good thing. The brand is the brand. I don't know that there was a unique product. And for me, 50/50 was a unique product. And for me, 50/50 was an opportunity to grow skating and to invest back into skating to come out with 50/50 wheels. You know, a wheel that's designed for this frame. Because I wanted to make a wheel that I could skate. And I wanted to make a wheel that would skate as good as possible in these frames. And that wasn't possible, so I did it. And that's why I brought back 50/50, so that I could do projects like that. I have no interest in bringing back the other companies. I talked to Jess a little bit about England. We did have a lot of England clothing available at the Blading Cup this year. A lot of old samples and, extra inventory that he had that he didn't wear anymore, or that was, provided to the team and they didn't want. It just, I don't know. It felt weird having England clothing back. It's awesome because I love that style. I love having that clothes, but I kind of think that it deserves to just live in that time. It was different then. It was, John and Dustin and Josh and Dominic. Like, that was, in my eyes, that England clothing team, with Jess and Brooke and Ethan. And, like, that was what England was to me. If we brought it back now, it would be a completely different company. It would be logos put on T-shirts. That's not cool. It would be logos put on cut and sew, and that's not cool. Like, it needs to have something behind it. So 50/50 is 100% me. I sweat it. I love skating and I love 50/50. I love making frames. I brought it back because I wanted to make more frames. And I don't think there's another company out there that could come back with that sort of passion. I could be wrong. I'd love to be proven wrong. But I don't know that another company's going to come back. And if they do, I don't know that it'll come back with the same intentions that I had. And maybe that's, being selfish of me or stupid of me to say, but I don't know. I would be shocked. If Medium came back, I would be a little skeptical. Like, I don't know if they should. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. Take it or leave it. All right. Okay, so the main event. So I have to preface this. This garage is getting hot. If you guys remember last year, I was sweating through my shirts at the end of the day. I think I have a little bit of sweat this time. The garage is going to keep getting hot. I got to get some air conditioning in here or something like that. I have an office that I could set up, but I don't want to set it up in there. Anyway, main event. So my brother from another mother, Andrew Kingery, this bug keeps flying around. Amazing dude. He is the guy behind King Souls. He is really creative. So he started making pieces. We actually met because he made some grind plates. And he posted a picture on Facebook. And he's like, hey, check out these grind plates that I made. And I think Ben Vanderbo, Vanderhagen, sorry. Jesus, Vanderbo is Mark. I think Ben tagged me in it, and he's like, hey, check this out. And I'm like, oh, what are you doing? That's a ripoff. Just kidding. And Andrew was like, whoa, I'm just making it for fun. I'm like, I know, it's fine. Like, I was kidding, sorry. So we started talking, and yeah, he made these grind plates. It was really cool. He started getting into custom CNC and cutting out plastic and different materials. And he started making King Souls. And do I have my... I don't know where they are. I had some King Souls. They are amazing. So he makes them for all different sorts of skates. And absolutely cool stuff. But, he and I have been talking, and he sent me a package this week with some skates to try. Can anybody guess what skates they are? Oh, look at me. Look at what team I'm on. So these are the Salomon Aaron Feinberg Pro Model, which I think was the first UFS boot. It is crazy to have these. They are my size. He collects Salomons, so he sent them over to me to test. The liners are 28.5s. That's my foot. I don't know how the shocks are. They're probably not in great condition. King soles in the house. So these are the amazing king soles that Andrew makes. They fit like a glove on these Salomons. I don't know when I'm going to skate on them yet. I mean, obviously I'll skate some 50-50 frames. Probably skate juice blocks because this is like a grinder blader setup for me. But I'm really excited. You know, after I get through skating these Aeons again, I'm really excited to try these out. I never skated Salomons. I always thought that they were just, I don't know, they weren't cool. Like back in those days, I just thought they weren't cool. But now, you know, they look pretty good. Like all of the technology, the fact that they're still holding up after 15, 20 years, it's incredible. So yeah, size 10.5 Aaron Feinberg Salomons with king soles. I'm going to set them up, and I cannot wait. I think this is going to be an amazing grinder blader setup. Really curious. You know, it's got that pivoting cuff. It's got the lock in the back with the little thing in the back. I wonder why nobody does that anymore. Like so many innovations that Salomon had that they just don't, nobody copies. So cool. Anyway, thank you so much, Andrew. These are amazing. I cannot wait to set them up and go for a roll. It's gonna feel weird, but I can't wait. It's just such an amazing thing to look at. Thank you. All right, let's see. I'm going to cut out in a little bit. Just wanted to see if there's any questions that I can answer before. And I think I got through everything. Cobra Kai, will I start making wheels big enough for your pickup truck? Probably not, unless it's a Hot Wheels pickup truck, which would be kind of weird. All right, I think that's everything. Thank you all so much. 10:15. So yeah, good hour and 15 minutes. Not bad. I try to do about an hour. Don't want to go too long because my voice starts hurting. You know, usually when we do the podcast, I can bounce ideas off of Ben, or we have a guest and we're able to share. But for me, talking for an hour and 15 minutes is a lot. Thank you all so much for joining me tonight. Again, if you are interested, make sure to subscribe. I'm going to be skating the 80s this weekend. I'm really excited about those. And I'm going to be taking out the Aeons again. I hope. My daughter has a sleepover, so it might be a shorter weekend. I'm probably only going to be able to sneak out on Saturday morning. I'll probably do grinder blading on Saturday morning. I want to get out to Marsh. Maybe I'll go to Apex. I'll probably go to Apex, which is the skate park, because I have those Aeons set up with, the flat 58s. It's probably a really great setup for when I'm skating distance, big skate parks. But anyway, thank you all so much. Really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys next time.